Welcome to Alpha Wolf Trading. Did you know that there's over 12,000 stocks or companies that trade on the OTC? Between the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, you have over 7,000 companies. But us as retail investors, we wouldn't know that unless we were researching. Because why? Wall Street focuses on the elite, the big companies. And where the retail investor has their advantage is in small and micro-cap stocks. Why? Because you have the opportunity to speak directly with leadership. That is what this is all about here at Alpha Wolf Trading. We're trying to find the hidden gems, and we interview the executive teams of companies that we think meet the parameters to be those hidden gems. I also want to make sure you understand that this is not a paid-for promotion. I collect no compensation for the interviews I do here. These companies that I interview have been identified as potential opportunities for me and the members of Alpha Wolf Trading to receive a higher than average return on our investment. These companies I have identified either because of a technical setup on a chart, a fundamental change within the organization, management team, new products, all kinds of different things that actually lead me here. But what do I think is the most important? Leadership. And that is why I do these interviews. I want to understand what drives the person that is leading the charge. I want to feel their passion. I want to understand their vision and the strategy that they're going to use to achieve success. That is what these interviews are for. I want to understand the share structure and the cap table, the size of the TAM, the total addressable market. This is the opportunity to learn all of those things. So sit back and enjoy. And if you learn anything from today's interview, do us a favor. Subscribe to the Alpha Wolf Trading YouTube channel. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with a follow-up interview to one of my favorite stories, probably one of the most underappreciated stories, I think, because since Sam has taken over this company, Sam and his team, really there's just a 180-degree turnaround, just a whole different company than what it was when Sam came in, through some very challenging times, COVID being one of them. Just little things like that, theft, just little things, no big deal. Sam Rubin from Lightpath, ticker symbol LPTH. Sam, thanks for coming in and giving us an update.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. Always a pleasure meeting you and joining the show.
So, it just happened. I don't know if it was kismet or whatever it was, but I reached out to you the other day and said, hey, I think it's time for us to do a follow-up. And unbelievably, news came out, and I think the street liked it because it looked like the stock had a nice little lift there.
Yeah, like 30%.
It's pretty big news, right?
Yeah, it is. It's funny you were mentioning the challenges we had, and a big part of it was China, actually, because when I came on board, we discovered ongoing theft in our China facility. This is at the time of COVID. We had to terminate management there without being able to fly. Extremely painful and expensive. And so, the China gift was sort of to us a negative thing until now. This week, China gave us a solid, as Lightpath, not the US, in the form of restricting or announcing their intention to restrict the export of germanium. And, we've been talking about it for a long time and preparing and acting in that way to that in developing our own optical materials that are a substitute to germanium. So the germanium, that China is restricting in export goes into a few different places: semiconductor is a big piece of that, as is solar cells, as are solar cells, but probably as much as 25% of it, according to some Congress report, 25% of the germanium goes into optics. And that is all the infrared imaging devices, not only of the military, in some commercial uses as well. And so, we cannot solve the problems for the semiconductor and such, but we can solve the problem for that 25% that needs to get used in optics. We have alternative materials that some of them we developed internally, some of them we licensed from a government lab that developed them. And those materials are already fully qualified by DOD, by European Space Agency, by lots of different groups and key players, can actually displace germanium. They can be a substitute. And so, I think the market reacted nicely to it, probably not fully appreciating yet just the magnitude of it. But, also given that it takes time to replace something and to move in with a replacement, I think we're at a very good place in that sense.
I think you are as well. So, not long ago, it was kind of right after you and I had done our last follow-up. You did a capital raise, which shockingly was actually well received, right? In a horrific market. I mean, even now, the deals that are being done are less than friendly, right? They're toxic, for the most part.
Absolutely. I mean, microcaps. We went into it knowing the environment is horrendous for microcaps, right? Everyone had to give up 50, 100% warranties, convert.
How about 200% warrants?
I haven't seen that, but I can believe it. It's
It's happening.
Yeah. No, I've seen a company that lost 80% of its market cap, as soon as they announced an intention to raise money. Ours went very different from that. We raised money, not with a regular 15% discount on market, no warrants whatsoever. We were oversubscribed by 3x. So we went in to raise 6 million or 7 million, I can't remember. We got offers for 27 million with no warrants, nothing. And so we ended up raising 10. And in addition to that, the stock price went up 45% the next day.
That was an impressive. That was impressive. I
don't have the guts to repeat it again and see if I can pull it off again, but it was definitely nice to walk away with that. Yeah, no doubt. And we've brought in some great investors. We have now, a considerable institutional base. People were fighting over the allocations. Everyone wanted at least 5%. And so it was a very, very interesting experience. And,
all right, so
we're grateful for it.
Post the raise, how many shares do you have outstanding, fully diluted?
36, I believe. 36 million, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting as I look at the chart, I'm looking at that 130 price level held like a champ. I mean, it really is interesting. Anybody that says technicals, don't tell you anything. Technicals tell you a lot.
You actually called out the 130 as a support line in our previous interview. I mean, straight, exactly.
And it held, right? And what I think is really interesting, and I'm not just seeing this just with Lightpath, I'm seeing it with companies that, and you and I just talked about it before we hopped on, is that there are companies that are executing and they have gotten stronger and smarter, right? And look, the stocks have been going sideways, kind of, waiting for the market to decide what it's going to do. And everyone's been so fearful that we're heading into a recession, waiting for the other shoe to drop, that you've got a bunch of money on the sidelines that's not doing anything, right?
Yeah.
And sideline money doesn't do good for anyone. So but I think that the markets are, and stocks specifically, and this is a perfect example. For a long time there, for the last 24 months, you could report news.
Yeah.
It would be good news, and the stock would go down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You just had a good news event come out, and whoa, the stock actually popped off of that news.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it's different. I can feel it in the market, right?
Yeah.
We just had a 20% move, the lowest low. We've had a 20% move higher. That is an indicator that they use to say that we have entered a bull market. You don't enter a bull market when you're going into a recession. I'm sorry. That typically does not happen.
Yeah, but I think, as we said earlier, the definition of what is a recession is going to change now, right? as it gets fine-tuned after every time. So now recession can look differently, according to economists.
So you have this little gift from China.
We do.
Right at a point in time that is almost perfect, really.
Yeah. What's really aligns very well for us is the fact that a year and a half ago, we received an exclusive license from a government agency for new materials that they developed. And it sort of aligns perfectly because it is, you don't replace germanium with one material, you replace it with a collection of, and we have that collection exclusively. And then the raise that we did in January, that entire raise is allocated toward expansion and growth. It's not for operation burn or anything like that. And so we've already spent, I think, 3 million of that on expanding our Orlando facility, which is where we make that material.
That's what I was going to ask. Where's that material made, Sam?
It's made here in Orlando. It's made here in Orlando. The raw ingredients come from multiple different countries that are not China, from Morocco to Germany to our good friends in Canada. And, the supply chain is stable for it. We produce it here. We produce about 10 tons a year of it, which, is maybe right now 1/10 of what is needed for optics alone. I'm not even talking about all the semiconductor and all of that, just for the optics world, about 1/10 of that. We finished the renovation here, have the room to expand. It's good. We've been actually slowly, decreasing our exposure to China over the 3 years since I joined. I mean, you might remember very well that in addition to all the mess that we had there, we actually stopped investing in China. All our investments in the last 3 years have been in the US and Eastern Europe, now a facility in Latvia. So it all sort of aligns very, very well. We're now, not only seeing this potential growth of sales because of this material and because of the germanium limit, but we also saw not even a month ago, Department of Transportation announcing their intention of mandating emergency braking system in all vehicles, and for those systems to have much better performance at nighttime compared to what exists today. Well, what is one technology they literally spell out in that proposal, and that's thermal imaging. Thermal imaging is the way to add simply, easily, it's not LiDAR, it's not overly complicated, you just add one more camera and you add to emergency braking systems the ability to see at a greater distance, more details, classify what you're seeing by temperature, and at night and during, worse conditions. So we've been actually working on this. We've been with a few different automotive companies. The leading one, I might have mentioned in the past, out of Detroit, one of the classic ones, not an EV company, has already fully qualified our thermal imaging assembly. And we're now in negotiations or discussions around supply agreement and around what the next few years are going to look like. But they're talking about scaling to 1 million cars a year within 5 years. And our unit prices in those cars vary between $20 to $50 a car. So, we have two potentially transformative events happening for Lightpath. I mean, this is really, we don't have all the eggs in one basket, but we definitely have some very big baskets.
Excellent way to put it, Sam. No, I think like I said at the beginning of this is a story that I think is under-recognized, underappreciated, right? And I mean, you really have done, and I'm not just trying to pat you on the back. You came in at a rough time. You took over a very tough situation, and you really have done. You and your team have done a fantastic job.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, they've done a lot. We've, in addition to making up to all the sales we lost in China, right? China used to be 30% of our revenue, and because of the sanctions and such, overnight it went down to less than 10%. So we've made up all of that in the US and Europe. That's more than 10% growth a year in each one of those locations, just to make up for what we lost in China. But our SG&A is down. We decreased the size of our board of directors from 9 to 6. We've aligned so many functions and costs in the company. We're really, it's all primed and ready now. And these two opportunities of the automotive and the germanium couldn't be at a better time from our point of view.
Yeah, this is where, and potentially coming out of a very rough market and maybe starting a new bull market, right?
Hopefully so. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, these things all really align extremely well. And just to give people a sense of what the numbers are, what would the TAM be on these two things?
Yeah, so let's think about automotive for a moment. So our unit price per car varies from 20 to 50. Let's just to be on the safe side take $30 a car, just to be on the lower end. About 70 million cars get produced a year. It's going to be mandatory in every car in the US. It's already mandatory in every car in Europe. I believe Australia already voted to make it mandatory. And I don't know about the rest, but I'd assume definitely Japan would follow. If not leading it, it would follow very quickly. So let's say 50 million cars a year are going to need now this thermal imaging as a mandatory safety requirement, right? At $30 per assembly, 50 million cars, we get to $1.5 billion. For that one alone.
That's not bad.
Now, this isn't even the entire camera. We're just doing, the optical and some of the electronics. So it's, we can grow vertically and grow into doing the cameras also and grow into doing more and capture more. But I think we're, again, the germanium actually plays a perfect role here because automotive has more flexibility sometimes, or a new application, more flexibilities in defense. So from the get-go, when they started working on all of this, they said, no germanium. No germanium. Some of the car manufacturers are explicitly saying, no made in China. Even if you own the facility in China, we don't want you making this in China, in your facility. So it all sort of aligns very well for us and fits in together. Then you take the germanium, and we don't sell the material as bulk, right? We sell only finished goods, but let's talk about the numbers of material. About $600 million of germanium gets imported a year into the US, roughly. Different numbers floating around, that's my guesstimate there. 25% of that goes into optics, so 150 million. We could displace 50% of that, so it's 75 million. But that's 75 million as a value of the material, but we're not selling material. We're up processing it, making lenses, coating the lenses, making assemblies. So for us, it's more like a $800 million opportunity TAM there that we can achieve just because we own the technologies that can be an alternative for 50% of the optics market in germanium. So I'd say, two pretty good things for companies, and right now is about 35 million in annual revenue. Each one of them alone is transformative for us, right? I mean,
Right.
we put them together, and it's simply a completely different business.
It's almost like a dream come true, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's a third element to it too, but we're not going to talk about it yet because it's not yet grown. But if you look back at our scripts, at our investor presentations in this last half a year, we've been consistently for well over half a year talking about 3 pillars of growth: the automotive, the defense business because of Germanium, and the new camera business that we're growing into. The first camera business, we haven't even tapped in this context, right? And that's much larger numbers, by the way. But I'd say, yeah, the strategy is aligning well, or the market is aligning to our strategy. Depends which way you want to look at it.
So I wanted to ask you about the cameras, the new cam that you are. So just to be clear, you were only making the lenses, but now you're actually making the entire assemblies, right?
Absolutely.
And it's a very specific and type of camera, right?
That's our entry point, right? Because there are multiple companies that make infrared cameras, so there wouldn't be any uniqueness of value or any value created by one more doing the same thing, right? So you come into an existing market and you're a new entrant, you have to have your own values that you bring to the table, right? A reason. In our case, it's a technology. We own a technology that enabled us to develop a camera that does today things that can't be done with a camera at that price point. Today require a cryogenically cooled $100,000 camera to do what this $15,000 camera can do, right? So it is a very interesting element to it, because on one hand, we're displacing the regular mid-wave cooled cameras, those cryogenically cooled ones, simply with a cheaper one, right? But the more interesting one are all the applications that haven't been tapped yet because the camera was way too expensive for them. So these are the places where you get to now hear from customers or potential customers, oh, I've always dreamt of doing XYZ with a thermal camera like that, but when it cost $100,000, it was price prohibitive. And now you can do it. So some of the really cool things we're seeing are, for example, plastic recycling. So today, when plastic gets recycled, it flies down a conveyor belt. There's some special cameras looking down at it. They're called hyperspectral cameras. They're cameras that can detect the spectral signatures, the sort of shape of the signature from the material. And according to that, say, is this PET, is this PVC, and sort them out, because you cannot recycle PVC together with PET. You have to separate them. The only ones that cannot be identified with those cameras are any black plastic. So black plastic absorbs all the light in the visible and the near infrared and so on. And so none of those cameras can tell what is that plastic. Is it PVC or PET or whatever, right? An infrared camera, mid-wave camera, can tell. The black does not absorb that light. So all of a sudden, we're now hearing from customers, until now, we're simply sorting out the blacks and throwing them away because no one can automatically sort out. And, you look at your household, you look at your office, how much of the plastic you have is black?
A boatload.
Yeah, it's a favorite color for a lot of people.
Yep.
So taking the price point down from 100,000 to 15,000 opens up the entire market of recycling. Europe 2 months ago passed a law mandating 100% recycling of plastics. They are not allowed by law to anymore export any materials for garbage or recycling, right? Probably, China, Malaysia, all of those simply refuse to take it anymore. But so now they have to recycle. And so, solving that last piece of plastic, which happens to be the majority of plastic. Right? I think only second to black is maybe transparent plastic. Or right. So solving that problem, is huge for them. So that's just one of the examples of, things that we're suddenly hearing about, that people are saying like, Eureka, we always knew it's technically possible, but the price point wasn't there. So we're entering a market that otherwise probably wouldn't care to even talk to us. Why would you suddenly buy a camera system from someone that until yesterday was just making the lenses? Why? I mean, you can come in with a lower price, but that only gets you that far. Leveraging, thinking down into, okay, what's unique about my materials? Well, they're multispectral, they can do this, they can do that. Okay, what can be achieved with them? Well, suddenly you can do a camera that can be uncooled and see in the midwave. You're like, okay, so instead of selling the material or selling the lenses, I'll just make the camera.
That's excellent. I see. I just love everything that you guys are doing. I just think it's and I think it's going to start to you're going to start to reap the rewards of all of that, right? I mean,
I think so. I think it's really, you look at our numbers, and end of December, we announced a record backlog of 31 million. That's 50% higher than what our backlog was averaging. It sort of tells it in a way. A backlog is not a bad thing, as opposed to, in some concepts, people think of a backlog as, oh my God, those are all the orders you weren't able to ship on time. That's a back order. A backlog is bookings into the future. These are orders the customers wanted to schedule into the future. For a $35 million revenue company to have their forward-looking backlog go from 20 to 30 million says something.
It does say something. You know what? I don't know if you remember, but the last time we had our follow-up, I said to you, Sam, you're one of the CEOs that just seems very, very calm, very, very easygoing. Just you don't seem stressed at all.
I give my commanding officer in the Navy credit for that. It's I think a few years of that has really taught me to sometimes put things into perspective and understand that, at the end, everything has a solution.
I think you've gone through a pretty rough start. How long have you been there now? 3 years? Is it 3 years?
Yeah, just
3 years.
3 and a few months, yeah.
Okay, so 3 years, pretty rough stuff, but I think that it's about to start getting fun for you.
It is. I actually literally jump out of bed in the morning, My wife and kids are gone for a couple of weeks. I'm like at work at 7 a.m. Okay, I don't have any kids to drop off at camp or at school. I can start work earlier. This is how much fun we're having. It's really, everything is sort of happening now.
And that's good. I think that the biggest challenge for Lightpath is just awareness, getting people familiar with the story and understanding that it's not just a lens component company, even though lens components, as far as I can tell, there is going to be more and more need for optics.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, photonics,
robotics, everywhere. Right? I mean,
right. But when it comes to investment and, having worked in optics my whole career, I can tell you, it is very difficult to explain to people what you do when you're making a component. Even to my own kids, I found it challenging. But now, we've moved from being a component company to a product company. We actually have a story to tell, emergency braking systems. Everyone knows those, right? Germanium, thanks to China, everyone knows that now, Cameras, well, everyone understands cameras, we can talk about actual applications, plastic recycling, Having been a component company, it might be a good business, as a vendor, but it's a tough story to sell.
Right. Right. Well, Sam, I think you're telling your story extremely well, right? And I think more people are going to start taking notice. Hopefully, they do. This little pop that you had it. Anybody that doesn't think technicals are.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, if you look back on this chart, going back to 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I could go all the way back to 2020.
Yeah, that's when
I see this resistance line that you are continually bouncing up against, right? The downward trajectory is done. You broke the downward trajectory. Now it's been kind of like in this building of base mode. And the wider the base, the higher the space when it actually goes, right? So I'm looking at this, the line in the sand for you guys is to close above $2. I don't care where you trade throughout the day.
Right.
It's where you close that matters, right?
Yeah.
And when you take out 2 and you close above 2, that is going to be a very fun time for you. Yeah. And I just think, as I look at things that you have going on fundamentally, and then I'm looking at the technicals and the way they're lining up, I would say that break above 2 is this is just my opinion, is in the not too distant future, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it gets really fun. So,
I'm with you. Yeah.
I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. I don't tell people to buy or, sell. That's not what I do. I just present a really good story. Yeah. And if you're not paying attention to this story, I suggest that you put LPTH on your watch list. So go to the website and sign up for investor alerts, and keep an eye on what's happening with Lightpath, because Sam is going to wow you. Sam and his team are going to wow you at some point. I don't know when. I can tell you this. I've been doing this a long time. I am usually right on a company and a stock. I just am not real good at telling you exactly when it's going to happen. It always takes longer than I think it's going to take. But it does eventually happen. And I think that'll be the same story here. So, Sam, I appreciate you coming in and give us up. When do you have your next earnings report?
We just finished our fiscal year, so it's going to be a while. I think September we have our 10K, but we'll probably in August give a rough update, a prelim on our numbers, so people don't have to wait that long. So, but the full call and everything will be beginning to mid-September.
Okay, so would you feel comfortable suggesting that this next fiscal year could be a transformative big year for Lightpath?
I think we've been saying that. The backlog indicates that, performance, stars are finally aligning in the right way for us. I think we're at a real inflection point here.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Sam. Listen, when you have your next when we have the next event that we think is worth coming back and sharing, we'll have you back. Okay.
Sure thing. Okay. Thanks, Tim.
All right, Sam. Hold on one second. I'm going to turn this off. Hey there, folks. Thanks for tuning in today to listen to this interview with Sam Rubin from Lightpath Technologies Inc., ticker symbol LPTH. If you enjoyed today's interview, please do us a favor and give us a like. Why not give us a share? And while you're at it, how about giving us a follow? Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Trading wishes you the very best of success.